Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, the African Union has a new chief as Chad's candidate picks up the most votes at the bloc's annual summit. Also on the agenda is Morocco's return to the fold and the impact of new US immigration restrictions. Also, opposition figures from Chad and Congo Brazzaville accuse Paris of being in the pocket of regimes they left behind as France freezes their assets. And we meet some potential leopard cubs. No, not on safari, but the young Congolese hopefuls training with an eye on one day joining their national football squad and gaining glory on the pitch. But first, Chad's foreign minister is the new head of the African Union. Leaders from the continental bloc chose Moussa Faki Mahamat during the AU's annual summit on Monday. Now, he'll replace outgoing commissioner, South Africa's Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma. The meeting in Addis Ababa also saw Morocco's readmission to the Union. Rabat quit over a territorial dispute 3 decades ago. Our Katerina Vitozzi has been following what was a busy day in the Ethiopian capital.
It's been a day of big changes here at the African Union Summit in the Ethiopian capital. The first major decision of the day, the election of the new African Union Commission President. That post going to the Chadian Foreign Minister Moussa Faki Mahamat. He has pledged to reinvigorate the African Union's youth development programs. He's also said he'll look at how the AU structures its financial investments in the various peacekeeping missions that the bloc carries out across the continent. The second major change, the readmission of Morocco into the African Union after an absence of nearly 33 years. Morocco left the AU bloc in the early 80s, saying it didn't want to be part of an African Union that recognised the independence of the Western Sahara from the Moroccan territory. However, Morocco says it now wants to be back in the AU family. That wish was granted this Monday. There are also some concerns about events further afield. African leaders are looking at events across the Atlantic, and especially the latest executive orders of the US President Donald Trump. The question for many leaders and African organizations here is how they can continue to build ties with America when the US President has so clearly said it's America first.
Well, as Katerina mentioned there, African leaders have been grappling with the impact of US President Donald Trump's immigration ban. Libya, Somalia and Sudan are on a list of 7 countries whose citizens are facing a ban from entering the US. Dlamini-Zuma made a point of calling for unity at a time so many are facing blanket discrimination.
It is clear that globally we are entering very turbulent times. For an example, the very country to whom our people were taken as slaves during the transatlantic slave trade have now decided to ban refugees from some of our countries. What do we do about this? Indeed, this is one of the greatest challenges and tests to our unity and solidarity.
Well, on Monday, the UN commended Africa for the generosity shown to many fleeing violence in their countries of origin. Meanwhile, the disruption caused by the new US immigration restrictions continues, leaving many travellers in limbo.
We went through the normal procedures at Khartoum Airport and arrived at Doha Airport. Then we were surprised when they asked us to stand aside along with other Sudanese and Iranians, Iraqis and Syrians. We waited and then a member of the American embassy arrived and they allowed people with green cards to go through. But people with tourist visas like us were told that we were banned from travelling to America.
Trump's travel ban has provoked us and worried us. It's an abominable decision and we are all against it. We want to tell Trump, your people are everywhere. They work, they have businesses, and they are at peace. Therefore, as your people have dignity, other people also have dignity. We are telling him to respect people from other countries.
I call on Somalis in the US to come back and rebuild their country. But his decision is very wrong.
Tanzania has suspended refugee status for groups of asylum seekers. They must now apply individually. It's devastating news for those trying to escape violence in DR Congo and Burundi. Hundreds of thousands of people have already found asylum in Tanzania. The government says the ban is a security precaution, as refugees have allegedly brought thousands of guns into the country. Kenya struck a deal with the United Nations and will send peacekeeping soldiers back to South Sudan. 1,500 troops controversially pulled out last November after the Kenyan mission chief was fired. Nairobi believed that was unfair and withdrew. The UN's reportedly offered an olive branch in the form of returning command of the UNMISS peacekeeping mission to Kenya. Calling it an anti-terrorist measure, France has frozen the assets of 3 opposition members living here. 2 from Chad, 1 from Congo Brazzaville. Now, the targets of the measures have accused Paris of giving into pressure from African leaders out to get them.
Did Presidents Idriss Déby of Chad and Denis Sassou Nguesso of Congo Brazzaville put pressure on the French authorities? That's what 3 opposition politicians who live in France are claiming. France has just frozen their assets for 6 months. We asked the French Foreign Ministry why.
This decision is linked to the activities of these individuals in their respective countries in order to incite and facilitate acts of terrorism.
The 3 men are strongly opposed to their respective presidents but have never been sentenced for terrorism. 2 of them are Chadian rebels, Mohamed Nouri, seen here, and Mohamed Mahdi Ali. Idriss Déby, despite his controversial re-election, is a loyal ally of France in its fight against jihadists in the Sahel region. The 3rd opposition politician is Ferdinand Baou, a former general from Congo Brazzaville. He denied funding rebels and said he was unemployed.
I don't work. I just receive unemployment benefits from the French state. If you look at the account they've blocked, I have only €1,000. You can't fund a rebellion with that amount.
Sassou Nguesso has ruled Congo Brazzaville for more than 3 decades. Last year, the EU refused to send observers to cover the presidential election. It said the conditions for a transparent process were not there. When Sassou was re-elected, the French Socialist Party said his victory was not credible. Ferdinand Baou cannot understand why Paris froze his assets.
I'm very shocked by this decision. I didn't think an African dictator would be able to persuade the French authorities to take such a decision.
The 3 opposition politicians said they now want to file a lawsuit to protest against the freezing of their assets.
And finally, the Congolese take their kickabout very seriously. The DRC squad lost their shot at the quarterfinals of the Africa Cup of Nations after defeat to Ghana on Sunday. But a generation of athletes still hopes to one day break their nation's 49-year wait for a win in the tournament. Thomas Nicolan sent us this report.
Training is intense for these young football players. They all long for a professional career, and the coaches are fully aware of the huge potential in DR Congo.
There are many talented kids in Congo, but if we don't take them anywhere, their skills will go to waste. We want to give an opportunity to every Congolese child to hope for a fulfilling career.
The Ujana Academy is one of the biggest of its kind in the world, with more than 3,800 members from 6 to 18 years old. These kids know exactly what they want.
I like football. I'd like to get better. Because I think I'm good. I think I have a bright future in football.
The academy costs parents $40 a month, and they have high hopes for the children.
By registering my son here in Ujana, I know he will keep getting better. He'll be one of the best goalies in the future. I'm trusting Ujana to make a pro out of him.
Ujana Academy coaches are also striving to make a difference on a social level. A few kilometers from the training grounds, 400 underprivileged kids are given access to free training.
The aim is not to send them to Inter Milan tomorrow, far from it. We aim to instill in them the values that can be taught through sport and to reinforce other things, such as their education, so that they become good citizens.
pour que demain ils soient des citoyens de meilleure qualité, je dirais.
People from all walks of life are passionate about football here. And even though the Leopards got eliminated in the African Cup of Nations on Sunday, their promising results will surely bring new members to the academy.
Well, I hope to be here when they make it, as they no doubt will. That is, though, where we're going to have to leave it for Eye on Africa. Thanks very much for joining us. Do so again. Take care.